What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Okay, so I haven't covered any Congress news in a little while, and we just so happen to have a government shutdown looming over here in the background. Ooh, government shutdown. Like, who cares at this point, right? But, you know, we kind of care about the government shutdown. We kind of care about the funding because currently it's chaos right now. Of course, it's only chaos because the corporate press and Democrats are making it chaos. You know, if they just didn't say anything about what Donald Trump was doing, he wants to downsize the size of the federal government, hey, they could shut up, sit down, and just let Donald Trump do it, and there would be no chaos whatsoever. But, you know, they want to create chaos, so that's exactly what they're doing. But let's get into this story right quick, because it's a long one. Yeah, we got a lot of budgetary issues to get into, y'all. Check this out. GOP plows forward with government funding plan despite Democratic opposition. Like just the name of the headline right off. Like, okay, here we go with some more narrative building, if you will, that once again throws a negative connotation onto that, as if Democratic opposition actually matters at this point, which it doesn't. But, you know, they just want to let you know and make sure that Democrats oppose what the GOP is doing. Like, are you serious? Like, this isn't the 1980s anymore, and we are hyper-polarized right now because of, you know, not because of Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a symptom. He's not the problem, if you will. He's not the virus. It's the woke mind virus, if you will, that is the actual problem, and the derangement that these people have, because they don't have to be deranged. They choose to be deranged, as a matter of fact. But let's get into it, y'all. House Republicans are pressing on with plans for a clean 6-month stopgap to keep the government funded beyond next week's shutdown deadline in the face of staunch resistance from Democrats. House Appropriations Committee Chair Tom Cole told reporters on Wednesday that Republicans are running the full-year CR period next week, referring to the party's plan to pass a stopgap, also known as a continuing resolution, through late September. Now, I will come out and say I still oppose continuing resolutions, but, you know, I've come to see that sometimes when these people just can't do their job, yeah, you kind of have to prevent a government shutdown. And these people, once again, they like to stay in power. So they don't want the government to shut down because they think in their minds, their politically mushy brains up there, that if the government shuts down, they won't get reelected. Well, I can tell you something right now. Most Americans don't feel any effects whatsoever if the government shuts down. Whatsoever. Right? Like a lot of these, necessity jobs, like people that, you know, Medicare, a lot of this stuff still goes on. It still happens, even with the government shutdown. So people's, you know, payments aren't really interrupted. You know, I don't care what they tell you, but let's keep going, though, before I rant on. We're not going to live through CRs every 2 weeks and all that kind of stuff, he said. So the speaker is very insistent that we go all the way to September. I agree with that decision. Negotiators on both sides have previously been hopeful of striking a bipartisan deal on overall government spending for fiscal 2025, which begun in October. But both parties have struggled to reach an overall funding agreement amid a fierce debate over the president's authority to withhold dollars already allocated by Congress and lay off thousands of federal workers as part of a sweeping operation to reshape the government. Once again, like, this doesn't make any sense to me either. These people like, oh, you know, the president has no authority to stop funding of these programs either because Congress already allocated those funds. Well, you know what? You know what I find so interesting about that is, once again, this is narrative building. Oh, it's illegal. Donald Trump's doing illegal things with the federal government. Well, like, you ever sit back and ask yourself a question? Who created those budgets, by the way, that Congress actually approved? The federal government created those budgets. So if they need to shift some stuff around, they absolutely could do this. Now they try to throw out precedents from court cases, and I forget the act it was. I covered it the other day, but it basically says that yes, the government can reallocate funds. They can move funds around. Speaking of, by the way, as an aside, they never said a dang thing when Joe Biden done this on a constant basis. But, that's all that aside was. But anyway, they can do this. As a matter of fact, Donald Trump can freeze all these to investigate these programs because he thinks there's some fraud going on. So if he thinks there's fraud going on, he most certainly has the right to investigate this because, federal workers aren't above the law either. Right? Just because Donald Trump is above the law, as they say, doesn't mean that federal workers are as well. We do have evil people that work in our government that are just greedy, that want to do things for themselves. So they set up all these slush funds, right? And we've been finding just program after program after program of nonsense. Just absolute nonsense. Like the EPA found $375 billion going into a slush fund, or going to a nonprofit that was just created like 5 months prior. Huh? That's insane, if you ask me. Kamala Harris. Yeah, you got to go check that story out. I might cover it tomorrow, but I just saw it. But I wanted to cover this, so we'll see if I cover this later on. But it blows my mind that these people think that, Donald Trump can't cancel anything once Congress approves it. He most certainly can, and there is precedent to do so. He just has to get their approval, right? Like after he stops the program. He wants to move this, goes to Congress and says, hey, I want to move this, and they say, okay, boom. That's it. But he most certainly has the right to put a freeze on it, a temporary pause on anything he wants to. Doesn't mean it's permanent, by the way. And that's exactly what he's been doing. Cole said on Wednesday that a bipartisan deal is still better than a CR, leaving the door open to both sides continuing efforts to craft a bipartisan government funding deal for the remainder of the current fiscal year. You don't have to do every single bill. I want to do all 12. I'm going to be crystal clear about that. But we can't have a situation where a government shutdown is threatened every 2 weeks. We have other things to do, he said, adding that Speaker Mike Johnson has also told appropriators to keep negotiating. Cole and Senate Appropriations Chair Susan Collins huddled on Wednesday with the top Democrats on their respective funding committees. Senator Patty Murray and Rep. Rosa DeLauro, hopefully I pronounced that right, to discuss a potential path forward on fiscal 2025 funding. Democrats have been pushing for a very short-term stopgap funding plan to buy more time for bipartisan funding talks, while raising alarm about the impact of government programs continuing to run on levels that were last hashed out about a year ago. They also want any CR to include assurances that the administration will spend the money as directed, which is a non-starter for Republicans. That is correct. Yes, because they just want to continue doing what they've been doing for the past 40 years. And once again, like I always say, you can't keep spending your money into oblivion. You will destroy this country. These people cannot seem to see that. If they do see it, they are evil people for wanting to continue this spending nonsense. Just continuing to raise the debt ceiling and continuing to raise the deficits, because that's all they've been doing. And they'll cry all the time, constantly, oh, well, Donald Trump this and Donald Trump that, and we've got to fund this program over here for X reasons. Like, no, we don't. We have got to take some hard steps in this country to get back to fiscal responsibility. Right? Like this country, we just can't keep spending in a deficit like this. It's going to destroy our economy. It's going to destroy the government. DeLauro said after the meeting that a bipartisan deal on a top-line number for fiscal 2025 spending is imminent, and that negotiators are ironing out last-minute details. The first thing to do, in my view, is to make sure that there isn't a full-year CR, and I'm not sure the other side has the votes, but that's up to them, DeLauro told reporters. While government programs have been running on stopgaps since last October, Democratic negotiators raised a list of concerns over the potential consequences that a CR through the end of the fiscal year could pose to defense programs and military effectiveness, healthcare costs, pay reforms for wildland firefighters, veteran services, and food assistance programs. Sure, go ahead and throw that out there, but none of that is actually relevant, by the way. Democrats have also urged that a full year stopgap would give the Trump administration more flexibility on funding beyond what Congress intended in spending legislation. Republicans are expected to unveil their funding plan by the end of the week, with hopes of the House teeing up a vote on the legislation as early as next Wednesday. DeLauro told reporters that she expected Democrats to overwhelmingly oppose the plan if it comes up for a vote, underlining the potential challenges GOP leadership could face in locking down sufficient Republican support for the stopgap proposal with a razor-thin margin. Asked about the potential add-ons that could be included in the stopgap, Cole told reporters that the only anomalies we're doing are basically anomalies from the administration, like in defense in particular, but others too. We're staying with basically a clean CR. The anomalies giving the administration the ability to deal with issues like defense and like WIC and things like that. But some Republicans are also pressing for offsets for any potential add-ons, including in areas like defense. Rep. Chip Roy, who, if you guys didn't know, happens to be my favorite congressman because he has some of the most epic floor speeches of any congressman ever. As a matter of fact, this is well-known fact that Chip Roy has the best speeches. Why is that? Why do you say that? Because he doesn't just get out there and rail against Democrats. As a matter of fact, he rails against Republicans far more than he rails against Democrats, because he looks at Republicans like, okay, we're supposed to be the ones that's fiscally responsible, and we keep on raising the deficits, raising the spending, just blanket year over year, and we don't do nothing about it. These people sit on their hands, and that was probably quote for quote, as a matter of fact, but you never know. He's probably said that. He rails at them because that's his party. He is a Republican, and he knows that a lot of the spending that we've been doing is ridiculous, and these people continue to vote for this over and over and over again. A prominent member of the House Freedom Caucus said this week that he supports anomalies to help defense programs, but stressed the importance of government funding being frozen at current levels. No, I don't think he's even okay with that, because he's said many, many times in the past, we need to make some cuts to the funding. We can't just keep it at current levels, right? Because we need to get it back to pre-COVID levels, as a matter of fact, when the deficit was only $900 billion, as a matter of fact, right? Only $900 billion deficit. It's insane, y'all. I'm happy to give defense some of those anomalies again, so long as the overall spending level is staying flat, he told The Hill on Tuesday. My view of anomalies is you work anomalies into the top line number of the freeze, he said, adding that if the anomalies cost, then you gotta find some savings somewhere. And he's right about that. Once again, if you raise your costs over here on this program, you got to cut something somewhere else, because we can't just keep increasing the budget. It doesn't make any sense. It's ridiculous. Asked about the possibility of anomalies being offset by the forthcoming funding plan, Cole told reporters on Tuesday that negotiators are staying roughly within the numbers. These anomalies are things the administration has requested, he said, adding that every member can make their own choice. That's all to that one, y'all. That's a lot of reading pretty quickly, if I must say so myself. I'm not the best reader or the fastest reader, but I think I kind of dove through that fairly fast, if you will, given my interjections here and there. But, this is something like, I still believe, and I'm still hardened on this belief. And, it's just getting harder and harder every day. Every time I see a lot, funding stopgaps and CRs and all this nonsense, that first, these people don't do their jobs. They're more worried about fundraising for whatever nonprofit or the RNC or DNC. They're more worried about fundraising than they are doing their own jobs, because there's no excuse in the world as to why none of this has been worked out yet. Right? This is fiscal year 2025 funding, which started in October. How come it's not done yet? It should have been done before October, as a matter of fact. They should get all this budget stuff worked up before the year starts, right? That's why there's always a government shutdown looming, because these people can't do their job because they're constantly fundraising. Number two, get the dadgum corporate lobby out of Congress, right? This would free up congressmen to knock off number one from that, to stop fundraising constantly and actually do their job. These people just got a significant 40% pay raise. Like, who do you know gets a 40% pay raise all at one time? Sure, they hadn't had a pay raise in like a decade, but hey, it is what it is. They still got a 40% pay raise, right? So the corporate lobby, I think, needs to go. That is the root of all the problem in Congress, because there's so much money going back and forth, right? And, you know, a lot of USAID stuff, a lot of that money was going to NGOs, which NGOs, it's a known fact, there's a lot of them that fund the Democratic Party and Republican Party. I'm not trying to hold my tongue on this, right? I'm pretty much identifying with Republicans currently because they seem to be the only ones that have any common sense, some logic that they like to throw. But they're still not good people. As a matter of fact, I still believe we need to get rid of most congressmen. Like 99% of congressmen, there's about 10 that I would keep. And I always say this, right? You know, these people just have a problem with not doing their job, and they need to do their job, if you ask me. Because, once again, they spend way too much time fundraising, and, you know, the corporate lobby takes up way too much of their time. They could get so many bills done, get all this budgetary stuff done, get that out of the way, because this is nonsense, y'all. It really is. It's nonsense that we're doing this 6 months down the road when it should have been done 8 months ago, if you know what I mean. But, you know, I've said before, it's kind of a good thing because now we have a new administration in the House, and maybe we can get some cuts to the budget and get this government back on track. Because all this spending, all we're doing, right? We cannot be the world's, you know, food bank. We cannot be the world's medicine bank. We cannot be the world's police. We cannot be the world's aid center, if you will, right? Like all this, sure, it's good. You know, it makes you feel better about yourself. But you know what other countries, they see us giving all this crap away? They say, you know what they say to themselves, right? Whew, thank God they're not looking at us to do this. Either that, or they're like, look at them fools. Because they know a lot of those programs are going to nonsense. And you know that people are scraping off the top of a lot of this stuff. It would not surprise me if people walk away with millions upon millions of dollars a year from your tax dollars that we just so happen to print for some reason. Like, I think that should stop as well. It's just ridiculous, everything that goes on in the government, y'all. Like, this government has gotten way too big, and no one person can control it. Right? Like, it can't be controlled. It's too big to fail. And it's not. But, because, you know, if we default, we're going to have some big problems. We're going to have major problems if that happens. And, you know, the interest payments right now are rivaling the defense budget, which is by far the top in the world. It's almost $1 trillion, by the way. It's getting up there. It's getting close. It's like $870-something billion. That's absurd. That's the defense budget. I don't know what our interest payments are, but I know that they're about the same. I do know that. I don't know the exact number, but this is just all absurd if you ask me. And it's just getting more and more and more ridiculous as these years go on. But I think I've rambled on for long enough on this one, y'all. Y'all don't forget to smash that like button for me. I sure would appreciate that. Subscribe if you're new around here and you want to stay up to date with what Congress is doing and exactly how you're being manipulated by the corporate press. I sure would appreciate that. Share this video anywhere and everywhere you can. And if you feel so inclined, I would be eternally grateful if you could sign up for a membership. That would be awesome. You can join the channel, join the crew over here, the crew of just one. It's just me. That's it. Y'all sign up. Y'all do me that big favor. And, you know, I'll make personalized videos for everybody and blah, blah, blah. I'll make any video y'all want. Just ask for a topic. I'll make it. I'll do whatever you want. It don't matter. But, Y'all smash that like button, do all that goodly gob stuff, and y'all try to have a good day. Stay legitical. Peace.